The entire sports world was rocked by what the WNBA just witnessed. Two participants had a covert rendezvous that no one anticipated. The events that followed altered everything. Additionally, the league is still attempting to understand what happened. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe before I tell you what actually transpired behind those closed doors, because what you're about to hear will permanently alter your perspective on women's basketball. Sophie Cunningham brought more than just her gym bag when she entered the Indiana Fever facility. In less than a day, the secret she was harboring would go viral on social media. However, in order to see why this time is significant, you must be aware of the whole narrative that isn't being told by the mainstream media. It began on June 17, 2025. The Connecticut Sun believed they could continue their season-long strategy of pushing Caitlin Clark around. Clark was prodded in the eye by JCS Sheldon. She was pushed to the ground by Marina Mabry. The referees merely observed. The Missouri farm girl, however, who had been observing from the bench with fire in her eyes, was something they had not anticipated. Cunningham, Sophie, had had enough. This Taekwondo black belt, who had previously kicked field goals for her high school football team, wasn't going to stand by and watch the league's biggest star get harassed any longer. The entire WNBA was rocked by what transpired next. Cunningham did not simply make a bad. She messaged. Sheldon received a forceful takedown that led to her expulsion. Discover $900 and made her famous instantly. In just 48 hours, her Instagram following increased from 400,000 to over 1 million. She has more followers on her TikTok than any other WNBA player in history, at over 1.2 million. Here's what no one is discussing though. Behind the scenes, something more significant was developing while everyone was preoccupied with the brawl. Caitlin Clark had been observing, and she had a scheme that would permanently alter their lives. Clark's $28 million Nike deal was about more than simply shoes and ads, you see. It included something that the general public doesn't know roughly. A provision that granted her WNBA power never before seen. Authority to effect endorsements, collaborations, and, above all, who receives a share of the billion-dollar pie that will soon be awarded to women's basketball. 3 days following the altercation, Clark called. Not to Sophie Cunningham, her agent, or Nike executives. Up until today, what she said on that call has remained confidential. According to people close to both athletes, Clark provided something that had never been done by anyone in professional athletics. Do you recall when LeBron assisted his colleagues in landing endorsement deals? This was larger. Much larger. Not all of Clark's goals were to help Cunningham land deals. Together, she hoped to build an empire. Additionally, the initial domino fell when the Arby's arrived. You may be asking yourself, Arby's, really? However, this was no ordinary fast food offer. This was a well-thought-out action that linked to something far more significant. You see, insiders knew this was only the beginning, even though everyone was laughing at Cunningham wearing that shirt that says, "Hot girls eat Arby's." Next to take use of Cunningham's new moniker, the Enforcer, were ring security systems. "I defend my team on the court," is the tagline. "Ring protects me at home." Brilliant marketing that took advantage of her viral moment. However, these transactions weren't just happening. Caitlin Clark pulled strings behind every deal, endorsement, and social media post by using her connections in the business world, her power with Nike, and, above all, her awareness of what was about to happen. Because the WNBA does not want you to know this. The release of Clark's iconic shoe is not limited to 2026. Everything changes at that point. According to sources, Nike has been subtly getting ready for the revolution. A radical change in women's basketball that begins with two players who don't want to follow the rules. It is not just anticipated that Clark's sneaker will generate $150 million in revenue. It is intended to start a whole ecosystem. Who do you think will be that ecosystem's initial partner? The woman on the court who actually stood up for her. It gets much more bizarre though. Recall the Envy nightclub's All-Star Weekend party? The occurrence where Clark and Cunningham were seen dancing and taking photographs together? It was more than just two teammates having a good time. According to several reports, Clark and Cunningham had a private VIP meeting with 3 prominent brand executives during the celebration, while everyone else was preoccupied with the lights and music. What they talked about has not been made public. However, Cunningham soon began giving clues. Her enigmatic tweet regarding Terry Black's cookout wasn't made at random. It was no accident that she became interested in Texas. Everything was linked to a comprehensive plan that had been developed over several months. Phoenix Mercury didn't anticipate it. They believed they were getting rid of a role player when they dealt Cunningham to Indiana as part of the 4-team deal. What? In reality, they brought together two of the most marketable female athletes. And the outcomes are self-evident. In just 6 months, Cunningham's net worth has increased from barely 6 figures to over $1.5 million. Even though she only makes $100,000 a year, she makes close to 7 figures off the court. And that's only the start. Next was Quest Nutrition. Next began discussions with well-known fashion labels. Executives who sought a piece of the girl's magic were suddenly sitting in boardrooms with the girl who used to make $45 Adidas shoes seem nice. Here's the problem though. Without Clark's influence, none of this would have taken place. Are you curious about the true tea? Adidas is in a panic. Cunningham has been with them since 2022, but they haven't taken any action regarding her. Just basic athlete support, no big campaigns, no signature sneaker. In the meantime, Nike is quietly working on something that will astound everyone. A sub-brand under Clark's future line is being discussed by industry insiders. Something made especially for players like Cunningham, who carry out the grunt job and serve as enforcers and protectors. Consider it. There is a whole market of players and spectators that identify with the Sophie Cunninghams of the world, despite the fact that everyone is preoccupied with gaudy point guards. But hold on, things will improve. Do you recall Cunningham calling anyone who disagreed literally dumb and claiming that Clark was the league spokesperson? It wasn't only loyalty that spoke. Someone was there. Who can predict the future? Someone who is already aware of the goals, forecasts, and prospects for women's basketball. Cunningham earned $30,000 after winning the Commissioner's Cup. It was pleasant. However, it is insignificant in comparison to what is going to occur. Because everyone involved will gain when Clark's shoe line debuts, the sub-brands are introduced, and the ecosystem goes live. Cunningham is also vital, not merely related. Consider the story. Every superhero requires a guardian. Someone who is prepared to stand up for them is necessary for every star. Cunningham and Clark are more than just teammates. They are creating a brand narrative that will be examined for many years in business schools. The scorer and the guardian, the celebrity and her enforcer. Gold is being marketed, and nothing could be more ideal than the timing. The popularity of women's sports is rising. More people are paying attention to the WNBA than ever before. Two players who realize that salaries aren't where the real money lies are in the midst of it all. It involves creating something greater than basketball. This is where things start to become very interesting, though. According to those familiar with the matter, Clark's Nike contract calls for cooperative alliances. In essence, she was empowered by Nike to include other participants in her ecosystem. Sophie Cunningham is the first name on her list. This is no longer conjecture. This is taking place. The gatherings have taken place. The contracts are now being drafted. Additionally, while social media feuds and courtroom drama are distracting, Cunningham and Clark are quietly creating an empire that will transform women's sports, everyone. The WNBA's elderly guard doesn't understand. They continue to compete for attention and consider separate endorsement deals. Cunningham and Clark, meanwhile, are approaching problems like software entrepreneurs. Create an ecosystem, build a platform, and help others climb as you do. It's professional athletics with a Silicon Valley attitude. It's also effective. Currently, Cunningham's social media engagement rates surpass those of players with 10 years of professional experience. Her sales of products are skyrocketing. Additionally, every company desires a piece of Sophie Cunningham.